I need to ask millennials, why are your kids so awful?
I'm gonna just say this. I teach seventh grade. They are still performing on the fourth grade level.
Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. What world do we live in? Your 5-year-old daughters are asking to listen to Pound Town.
My most controversial take is that I think that millennials are worse parents than boomers. You can't even go to a damn library without hearing the muffled sound of Coco Melon blasting through sticky residue.
Please, we are in a crisis mode in American schools.
But I don't think we understand how bad it's actually going to get.
They don't know how to read at grade level and just in general do not know how to be functioning members of society.
Well, shit. I'm personally not sure whether it's harder to parent now or 30 years ago, both because A, I don't have kids, and as a result of the space time continuum, I was not a parent 30 years ago either. It certainly seems harder. There's a whole cottage industry about consternation about how Generation Alpha, those currently 14 years or younger, is being parented. You saw some of those clips just now. So it seems like there's a decline in parenting or an increase in the difficulty of parenting. Is that true? Or is it just something that every generation says about the previous one's parenting style? What exactly is going on here? First thing has to be cost. The childcare cliff, as academics call it, seems very real and almost seems to necessitate two income families. Or if the cost of daycare skyrockets year to year, it necessitates a woman, probably, potentially a man, to return to the home in order to negate that expense. There seem to be more economic pressures, which thus takes time away from active parenting. I'm the cool mom. I've actually heard this argument from a lot of people, including my father in law. We used to view kids as people we raised, and now we view them as friends. And while you don't only want to be the boss of your kids, the kids as friends paradigm can cut into effective parenting too. In the 80-year transition from children as economic necessity to children as a nice to have, children also became a primary aspect of keeping up with the Joneses and biological clock discussions. None of that is per se new, but in different affluent white subsets especially, you get the sense that children are predominantly an accessory. Jessica from back at the sorority house had 3 kids. So now you want 3 kids, goddammit, even if 1 to 2 makes more sense. I'm not saying all women or all couples are like this, but a chunk are, absolutely. On my medium side, I often hear from older readers, especially empty nesters, that we turn parenting into an Olympic sport. That feels true, as many parents that I know, especially when the kids are 7 to 8 and above, spend all their time being an Uber driver between various activities, some of which the kids don't even seem to enjoy. I used to work out with this kid named Austin, not a bad dude at all, but you'd see him show up at youth baseball and he seemed incredibly excited, but his son would look morose and miserable as they loaded and unloaded equipment from the car. That feels sometimes like I am parenting to redo my childhood, or parenting is my primary identity, and that feels like a landmine in terms of effective parenting. This is the most conventional argument and the one that many parents like to fall back on, as does society in general. While it is true that a lot of youth anxiety and depression stats commence around the same time as at scale adoption of smartphones, generally like 2011 to 2013, the phones are not the entire story. Because guess what? Parents can limit access to a phone if they want, Oh, wait, are you afraid that your 9-year-old might be pitching a fit at you because their friends have phone access? Because you want to be friends with your 9-year-old? Scroll back a little bit in the video. Thank you. In honor of recording this on opening day 2024, I added an Orioles fleece for this period of time. Listen, with later marriages and generally unhealthier lifestyles, infertility is more common. I know personally people who have done 6 to 10 rounds of in vitro fertilization or IVF. My wife and I did 2 rounds, neither were successful, and that is depressing. But I can tell you 10 rounds is conservatively probably about $150,000, which you could argue is maybe what, 15 to 20 quality vacations instead of trying 10 times to have a child via science aided methodology. Having a child increasingly becomes a destination because you had to work so hard for it as opposed to just part of the journey. And when you prioritize the arrival of bouncing baby Bradley as the destination, the top of the mountain, your parenting model gets screwed up. I can tell you personally, I don't have a child, but I worry about this for myself if it were to ever happen constantly. Okay, I'll rattle off a couple of these quickly. Number one is scapegoating. It's too easy for parents to find scapegoats. I mentioned the phones earlier, big tech, unsafe neighborhoods, bad schools, banned books, transgender, blah, blah, blah. When parents have tons of excuses they can point to for the demise of their specific set of children, they can over-rely on those excuses, which reduces active parenting. Snowplow models, that's a type of parenting where you pave over everything. It's kind of like the extension of helicopter parenting. It's good for children maybe in the moment because some of their problems are dealt with by an adult. Long term, it's been proven very bad in terms of resilience. Social fear, that's probably best reflected in kids not playing outside as much anymore. You hear a lot of people wax nostalgic for an era where kids ran outside and were more free range or feral. We don't see that happen as much anymore. A lot of people point to that. Some people probably shouldn't become parents, and they do over and over again. I would say someone that experiences infertility, which I think is the politically correct term for it, you do worry about this or wonder about this sometimes, why some of the worst people seem to have 4 to 5 kids. You can't really get triggered by it. It's just how life is. I would say liberal versus conservative models of family. You can bring trad wives into this if you want, but the generation that's starting to have kids now were raised in general in a more progressive way. Thus, they might parent more liberal. See also gentle parenting as a trend line. That's something to take into account. And then finally, I would say safety net is probably the biggest one that everyone points to. Generally, we don't value parents and their experiences that much. We value the general idea of parenting, and we like the idea of raising the next generation. That's a very virtuous thing to talk about. But, like, how much do we actually support parents day to day, economically, and within their neighborhoods? And until we do that, can we ever truly expect Generation Alpha or whatever comes after it to be parented, quote unquote, successfully? Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. I'm just one person. Like I said, I am childless, so you can take this all with a grain of salt if you want. But yeah, if you feel so inclined, leave a comment. Tell me what you think about modern parenting. Is it really in the crapper, or is it a moral panic that we've talked about for every generation for hundreds and hundreds of years, that the new kids don't have any idea what they're doing? Feel free to like and subscribe. And as ever, I will be back at some point in the foreseeable future. All right. Thanks a lot for giving this a whirl. Later.